So, Christmas is over and January is about to start, and it can be one of the more sort of bleaker months. But if you're itching to do some gardening, then I've got some jobs you can do in January. Now, the garden's getting a bit empty now. I've got a few remaining harvests to do, such as sort of daikon radishes, turnips, potatoes, and I've got a few things that are starting to pop up, such as garlic and crocuses. But January to me is kind of quite an exciting month because you've got a whole growing season to look forward to. And really, this video is about some of those jobs you can get on with even in January. That will give you a bit of a head start in the spring. Now, the first job I want to talk about is probably, to me, one of the most important jobs around self-sufficiency and reducing costs in the garden, and that is making your own compost. So now is a great time to either start your own compost, and one of the reasons I say that is because you will have typically access to a lot of dry fallen leaves. And behind me I've got a very large beech tree, which I absolutely love, but it drops all of its leaves in my garden, and as a result, now's a great time for me to collect those up and start composting. Now, if you've already started composting, you've already got your own heap or setup that you're doing, now is also a really good time to turn your compost. Now, turning your compost is really good to increase the quality of the compost you're producing. By turning it, you introduce air, but you also help mix any layers of ingredients. If, like me, I cut my grass and I add my grass clippings, they can form a bit of a sludgy layer. So by mixing those up, I get a really good opportunity to introduce the air, break that up, mix it, and get a better quality compost. So that's job number one. Now, job number two is linked to job number one, and that is mulching your beds. Now, if you've got a herbaceous perennial border, or if you've got a vegetable bed like me, now is a great time to put on an 1 or 2 inch layer of compost that will, over the winter, sort of break down and feed the soil life underneath. Now, I was really fortunate here. I was managed to sort of top this bed all with my own homemade compost, and as you can see, it looks really good. It's maybe a little bit wet and claggy, but being open to the air, it will dry out and things, and it will sort of all incorporate into the soil. What I have also done is, from my wood burner, just sprinkle a little bit of the ash from that, and I'll be sort of gently forking it in just to incorporate it into the soil. And that again will provide certain nutrients, potassium and things like that, which again plants will love, and hopefully next year we have a really abundant crop. But doing it now is a great time because typically your beds are quite empty, so putting them in now means you haven't got to worry about covering over plants and things like that. So I think mulching your beds now is definitely one of my number one jobs to do in the winter months. Now, a very traditional winter job to do is to prune your apple trees. You can also do the same with pear trees, but don't do the same with plum trees. Plum trees want to be pruned in the summer to avoid any sort of fungal disease. But apple trees you can prune, and I've got here 2 very overgrown apple trees. When I took over the allotment, I didn't even really know they were there because it was so overgrown I couldn't even get to these guys, but I've cleared all this area as much as I can, and I've now got these lovely apple trees. But they haven't been pruned in a number of years, and I need to give them a bit of a prune. So I'm not a fruit growing tree expert or anything, and all my research basically says you're trying to aim for like a goblet shape, so a sort of empty center, so there's lots of airflow and things, and then all your branches should be on the outside, going up a bit like a goblet. But apple trees do some weird stuff whereby they kind of grow back in on themselves and they twist around and things. Normally it's because of the weight of the fruit, but you need to sort of assess the tree, make some cuts, and then and then that should give a better sort of production next season. Not that I particularly struggled. I had a great apple harvest, but it can always be better. And this way as well, hopefully there'll be less pest pressure, because a lot of my apples did have sort of the maggots and worms living inside them, so that wasn't great. Pruning your apple trees is a great winter job, and a bit of exercise as well, a bit of fresh air. So quite enjoy this one. Now, on top of pruning your fruit trees, you could also take a look at pruning your roses now in the dormant season. Again, it's a bit like apple trees. There's not too much to worry about here. Roses, you can kind of cut them right back and they'll just spring back. It's not a problem. But now in the dormant time is the best time to do this, ready for spring. Now, I'm not going to do this today because I've got all these beautiful sort of rose hips still on the plant. And I really like the look of them, so I don't really want to be rid of them just yet. But again, late into January or February, I can prune these, cut away any sort of dead, dying branches, cut away any sort of overlapping branches, And what I can also do is look for where the buds are pointing, because that tells me the direction that the rose is going to grow next year. Now, another job somewhat linked to pruning is to take cuttings. Now, winter in the dormant season is a good time to take cuttings of your sort of hard woody shrubs. So here I've got my blueberry bushes, and I've taken a few cuttings from them. All you're really doing is you're aiming for something that's sort of a pencil thickness. You want to remove any sort of leaves or little branches, so you just got a long straight stick, and then whack it in some compost, and then leave it. You won't typically look or do anything with them again until, I don't know, maybe spring the following year, when hopefully we'll have put on some roots, and you'll have some new shoots and leaves and things, and then you can pot it on to its own separate pot, grow it on for another year before planting out. It's quite a long process, but it's really rewarding to grow something and for it to produce fruit or flowers from your own cuttings. So, and again, it comes down to self-sufficiency and reducing costs as well. So definitely a job I would recommend for in the new year. And what I'll do as well, I've made a bit more of a detailed video on this, and I'll just pop a link to it as well. Now, the final job for January, and I couldn't really make this video without doing this, is what to sow in January. And I got a few seeds here I would advise sowing. And it's a bit of a controversial topic. It is really early, and the light levels aren't particularly good for germinating seeds. But if you're prepared to start the seeds off inside your house, or your heating's on and there's a good amount of temperature there, maybe a conservatory or something like that, you can get away with starting this early and still have really good results. So the first one I want to talk about is broad beans. Now, this is a really old packet I've had for a while, so no idea how good the seeds are going to be, but starting this early, I'll always have more opportunities to sow more. So broad beans, they're quite big seeds, so I use quite big pots and I bury them reasonably deep. They're definitely a seed you want to give plenty of space and room. And sowing now in January is fine because these ones really don't mind the cold, but what they will want is as much light as I can give them. So I'm definitely going to do these in a conservatory or somewhere where they get plenty of light. But broad beans, another reason I always grow broad beans, and this is probably one of the big benefits of them, is they will grow sort of through the spring, and you'll be harvesting them early on in the summer. So it's great to have a plan for once they're harvested and they're spent, what you're going to put in place of them. But all I've got to do here is give these a bit of a water, move them indoors, and then they'll be fine. Next on the list, and it's another favourite, is onions. Now again, you sow onions now and you're harvesting them in July, so a great one to grow. And I always grow mine from seed, and you can grow onions from sets and you get slightly bigger onions, but I always find seeds, I get a bit more variety. So I've got Red Baron here, which I've grown last year, and I've actually just finished today making some caramelized onion chutney for Christmas presents. So really happy with that. And I'm going to try out this one here I picked up in a magazine, which is Ringsberger. Never tried it, but really good for storage. Big white onions. So I'm going to do one half Red Baron and then the other half the white onions. Now, onions, a bit like broad beans, you haven't really got to worry about the cold too much. All it's going to do is slow them down. But I will, again, germinate them inside before bringing out here so they get more light. And unlike broad beans, onions probably don't require as much light as you think. They're a bit different to broad beans, mainly due to their leaves. They've got quite small, thin leaves, so you can probably get away with a bit less light. Now, I'm going to try for quite big onions this year, so I'm just doing one per cell. But if you wanted to maximize the amount of harvest from your space, you could always multi-sow your onions. And what I mean by that is put more than one seed in a module. And I think I'm doing that by accident here, but there we go, never mind. So yeah, all that's left to do is once I've done this, put them in, give them a water, put them inside somewhere, and wait and see. And this is quite typically done, quite traditionally, sorry, done in Boxing Day is a good date for sort of your show onions, so your really large ones that all the old school growers are growing. So yeah, another one you can do in January. Now, if you're really looking to grow not just vegetables but flowers, one that I've had really good experience with sowing in January is the lupins. I'm not going to sow any today because I haven't quite got time and I need to organise myself. But lupins are really good because they're a perennial, and If, for example, you're a bit impatient and you can't wait for something like foxgloves, which is a biennial and will flower the following year, lupins is a great sort of I don't know, a great alternative, I think, because it'll flower in the same year. And the ones I grew from seed last year did flower for me, so quite late on in the summer. And yeah, you get that nice tall flower, which is brilliant to look at. And it's great for the pollinators as well. So that's another one. And there are other things you can try in January, but the real restriction in January isn't so much the temperature, because you can have quite a cool, mild January. It's the level of light. The days are quite short here in England, so you're not going to get the best results if you try and sow other crops in January. So I really hope you liked that video, and as you can see, even in the coldest, bleakest month, there is quite a lot of jobs that you could be getting up to in the garden just to sort of tie yourselves over while you wait for spring. And if you like any of the sort of this kind of content, or if you're looking for more information, do check out my channel. I've got lots of videos, things like growing broad beans from seed all the way to harvest, same for onions, and also things like propagating your blueberries and things like that. So if you're interested in that type of thing, do like and subscribe, and I'll see you all soon for more videos.